Today I will be evaluating the impact of the redemption arc in coming-of-age stories through the films American History X and Slumdog Millionaire. Violence within a society stems from a number of different factors, manifesting into armed conflict, gang violence, parent-to-child physical aggression, and more. Throughout film history, the coming-of-age genre has aided in exemplifying the effects of societal violence, as it is often centered around themes of transformation, youth, and a strong focus on the redemption arc. A character arc can be difficult to cultivate, especially when the character is morally corrupt. For a character like this to redeem oneself, it would require, quote, a trajectory that delves deep into the complexities of regret, atonement, and personal growth. The theme of redemption under the coming-of-age subgenre is prevalent in the 1998 film American History X, directed by Tony Kaye, and the 2008 Bollywood film Slumdog Millionaire, directed by Danny Boyle. Both films employ cinematographic techniques, mise-en-scène, and the motif of brotherhood in order to convey the negative effects of societal violence and how that leads to a quest for redemption. The film Slumdog Millionaire represents two brothers, Jamal and Salim, who grow up in poverty after their town in Mumbai, India is attacked by Hindu extremists. As they get older, corruption and jealousy over a girl leads to their separation. On his quest to find the girl, Jamal applies for a popular television show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. In American History X, a teenage boy Derek joins a white supremacy gang, formerly called DOC, after the death of his father. The bond he has with his younger brother Danny is close, as Danny begins to idolize his brother's beliefs. When Derek rejects his ideology after returning from prison, it causes a rift in brotherhood as he attempts to prevent Danny from becoming him. I will begin by talking about the cinematographic technique of color. Both films use color and lighting to portray distant memories and how these memories have shaped the beliefs and moral corruption of the characters over time. In American History X, most of the story is told through the eyes of Derek's younger brother Danny, and portrays a non-linear structure in which he frequently revisits memories from before Derek's imprisonment. These memories are filmed completely in black and white, which intensifies the portrayal of violence by creating a more disturbing visual experience, forcing viewers to confront the brutality of racism in its entirety. Additionally, the cinematography in American History X represents the stark contrast between racism and enlightenment, and serves as a visual metaphor for the moral dichotomy that Derek experiences throughout the film. The lack of color is symbolic of how Danny and Derek view society, literally regarding conflict as black versus white and blaming their shortcomings on African American culture. The conflict with race throughout the film is representative of the rise of neo-Nazi white supremacist groups throughout the 90s in America, and this movement started in the 1970s when skinhead gangs became popularized in places like California in order to combat black and Hispanic gangs. In fact, the film is set in Venice Beach, Los Angeles, a place known for its diverse population and heavy gang influence. The use of black and white may reflect the real racial tensions and conflicts that exist within the community, especially throughout the late 20th century. Contrasting colors are shown throughout the flashback to place more emphasis on the hatred and beliefs of the brothers. For example, during the tense basketball game over territory, there is a dark shot of Derek, almost always with a shadow on his face to emphasize how he's confined to one way of thinking. A shift to Danny reveals he has a faint shadow as well, displaying the beginning of influence from his brother. This trope is commonly represented in the coming-of-age subgenre, as both brothers begin to lose their childlike innocence and become transformative in their beliefs. While the lack of color highlights a dark period in the lives of both brothers, it also plays a crucial role in highlighting Derek's redemption arc. As the film progresses, the shades of gray and black become more prominent, symbolizing Derek's growing awareness of his wrongdoings and transformation. There's a similar use of color to illustrate flashbacks in Slumdog Millionaire, placing emphasis on the likes with which Jamal grew up and how that contributed to his current knowledge. With each question he answers correctly, there is a childhood memory that connects his answer, and viewers can see the switch from the bluish-toned, low-key lighting of the show set to the yellowed, high-key lighting of the slums. The bright and artificial lighting of the game show heavily contrasts that of the slums, emphasizing the realism of poverty in India and how that led to Jamal and his brother's last resort to become scammers and beggars in order to survive. The film itself is set in Mumbai, an area known for its high poverty levels. During the early 2000s, Indian economy had experienced a dramatic growth, and while this massive explosion of wealth influenced the middle class and upper levels of Indian society, it effectively held back those in extreme poverty. According to CNN, quote, the breadth of the divide between what Aravind Adigi calls the India of light and the India of darkness is both dramatic and shocking. This extreme separation of wealth is demonstrated throughout the film via lighting and aerial shots of the vastness of these slums, demonstrating to the audience the lives of which the brothers live and setting the stage for their fight up the economic ladder. With each flashback, the relationship between the brothers is made more obvious, and while American History X displays Danny's growing admiration and idealization of his older brother, Slumdog Millionaire effectively does the opposite, instead illustrating the straining of their relationship as they grow up and choose different paths. Salim chooses to embrace the corrupt ways of the slum, while Jamal still clings onto morality and the idea of love. In addition to color, camera angles and techniques also play a role in demonstrating the harmful effects of societal violence on impressionable kids. During one of the oldest flashbacks of the scene to Jamal's childhood, a riot amongst the slums of India breaks out, in which rebel Muslim groups attack and kill Hindus, including Jamal and Salim's mother. Handheld camera movements, as well as close-ups and candid angle shots, elicit the themes of corruption and prejudice in India at this time, ultimately portraying a sense of disorientation and fear. It represents and displays the effect of societal violence in terms of wiping the innocence of children and causing a cycle of repeated violence, as exemplified through Salim's integration into a violent lifestyle out of his desperation to survive. This again ties back to the notion of brotherhood, as one of the main conflicts in the film is, quote, the rift that tears brothers apart, yet the older brothers submit themselves to further corruption to ensure the well-being of their kid brothers, end quote. In American History X, there's a similar use of cinematography to exaggerate a chaotic event that takes place, specifically the riot within the grocery store. As Derek gives his propaganda speech about taking America back from illegal immigrants such as the ones who own the store, a tracking shot follows him in order to mimic the adoring eyes of those who follow him, representing the cult-like authority he has. Derek and his gang are extremely similar to the black gangs that they attest, as both come from areas of poverty, lack of parental figures, and a need to form connections with others in their society. The danger of this culture relates to the violence that comes within these communities, who become angered and look for anyone to blame for their shortcomings within their own lives. When Derek and the rest of the white supremacists raid the grocery store, the use of handheld cameras and close-ups to the faces of the victim exemplify these dangers, ultimately creating a social commentary on the effects of societal violence within a community. What's more, the use of handheld camera is literal, as shots to Danny's covered face reveal he's the one recording the whole ordeal, not yet participating in the violence but functioning as a witness to its effects. Both films also use cinematographic techniques to demonstrate the transformation from youthful innocence to moral corruption as a direct result of society, and how that affects the relationship between the brothers. In Slumdog Millionaire, Salim's first major initiation into the world of crime and corruption occurs when he kills the leader of the child trafficking ring, Maman. The low-angle shot of Maman on his knees, contrasting with the cut back to a high-angle over-the-shoulder shot of Salim, symbolizes the switch in power from the two characters, where Salim finally recognizes the authority he could have if he fulfilled his violent role. Similarly, in American History X, a close-up shot of a black man's face on the curb and the high-angle shot of Derek standing menacingly over him before smashing his face into the ground emphasizes pent-up anger and aggressive racism that has built in him these past years, transforming him into a true monster under the influence of the white supremacist propaganda. Any ounce of Derek's old self is wiped away in the moment of rage, and the close-up of Danny's face as a reaction mimics that of Jamal's after his brother murders Maman. These scenes are extremely similar, both utilizing slow motion in order to allow the audience to sense the sheer shock and confusion from both younger brother figures. The scene aids in exemplifying the effects of societal violence on the youth, and the fight for redemption that both older brother figures must now undergo as they have crossed the threshold of moral corruption. Finally, mise-en-scène is utilized through framing in order to portray the factors that lead to redemption of beliefs and restoration of brotherhood. In American History X, the framing of Derek and his black prison work partner begins with the two being extremely far away, and the rule of thirds is employed in order to highlight Derek's hatred towards his character based on the color of his skin. The shot frames the two characters on opposite ends of the screen, emphasizing the tension they feel towards each other. However, as time goes on, the two become closer and eventually form a friendship, which is characterized by the framing of the characters as they get closer in proximity each time they work. The ongoing relationship between Derek and his prison mate aid him in his quest for redemption, as he starts to open his mind to the possibility that he has known and preached for years is wrong. The framing in Slumdog Millionaire also aids in exemplifying Salim's attempt to rekindle a relationship with his brother after he abandons him for years. After an initial fight, the two brothers eventually sit side by side atop an old building, admiring the uprising of a city that used to be their slums. By applying rule of thirds, specifically by having the two brothers on opposite intersecting lines, it is made apparent that while the relationship is still shaky, there truly is a chance for Salim to have redemption and gain forgiveness from his brother. To conclude, both films utilize the coming-of-age themes of journey and transformation in order to emphasize the descent into moral corruption and violence, followed by the possibility of redemption and rekindling of brotherhood. American History X and Slumdog Millionaire utilize cinematographic techniques and mise-en-scène in order to map out the journeys of the two brothers, whilst emphasizing impact of societal violence on their upbringing. Both films subsequently cater to the coming-of-age subgenre to reflect the socio-economic status of the societies in which they are portraying, with Slumdog emphasizing the descent into a violent and crime-ridden lifestyle, and American History X representing the growth of gangs and racism in America during the late 20th century.